Hello and welcome to this week's series of Realism tips. This week we're going to be covering eyesight and how you can act it out. So, of course, nobody's eyesight is perfect, and this applies to real-life animals as well. Herbivores in particular will actually have eyesight that is more geared to seeing as far around them as possible, so their peripheral vision is very good. It's why, as you can see on my camera here, their eyes are actually often more horizontal than round, because this gives them the greatest depth of field whenever they are eating. So for example here you can see that it's a little bit more parallel to their surroundings. So that is the reason that herbivore eyes are shaped like that, and you can also mimic this general type of vision by acting out not being able to see what is directly in front of you. Pair in particular would be very likely to have a blind spot along that top of their horn there, so they wouldn't be able to see something that is directly in front of them. That is kind of how horse vision works in modern animals. So you can mimic this kind of vision by holding your hand directly on top of your nose and seeing what it'd be like to only see that area immediately around you like that. Sorry, my cat really wants to be in the video as well. Oh, yeah, I know, you do. So again, herbivores are going to have a very large focus on peripheral vision, whereas carnivores are going to be more like human eyesight, where it's centered around what's directly in front of them. That binocular vision is what gives them an edge in hunting, whereas herbivores have a bit of a better time seeing around them and as large a scope of field as possible to prevent anything from sneaking up on them. So you can also act this out in-game, again, by pretending to have a little bit of trouble with what's directly in front of you. Of course, herbivores are going to be moving their heads around to accommodate for this, but maybe if something immediately popped out in front of you, you wouldn't necessarily see it. This could also be applied to something that you see in-game too. So if you go up to investigate a tree or a plant or another dinosaur, you could try, of course, sniffing it, but you can also try shifting your head to the side, more so like this than directly in front of it, because that's what would actually give your dinosaur the better ability to see that object. Of course, smell, you'd be pretty centered on, but sight, you could try approaching it from the side instead. Additionally, blindness and deafness in general is something that will kind of come and go over most dinosaurs' lives, or at least that's what we would predict based off of modern avians, as well as larger counterparts like mammals. So, for example, humans, as they age, their eyesight will generally start to suffer, as will their hearing. You can act this out in, of course, a variety of ways. You can just pretend not to see things. You could slowly start to zoom in to minimize your periphery vision, or you could even set your gamma in-game to lower levels to mimic going fully blind. Gamma will typically start out at about 2 or 2.5 for reference, so as your dinosaur ages and becomes an elder, you could try lowering it to 2, or to 1.5, or to 1, or even to 0, to mimic going blind. And as you saw there, this is probably the best way for me to set my gamma, is typing the double slashes in chat, gamma, and then the value. You can also come here and type gamma whatever number, and it'll affect it there. So that's how you adjust gamma in-game, and you can use that to mimic, again, failing eyesight. But at nighttime, you can also increase it to mimic just better nocturnal vision for an herbivore or carnivore that hunts at the nighttime, as they would be better equipped to see than the default animal would be. Okay, so a lot of dinosaurs fresh out of the egg may be actually a bit more prone to having poor eyesight and vision as it starts to develop. Animals like Pero are probably pretty reliant upon just being able to get up and go, much as modern day ungulates would be, just to prevent predation, but some animals would be entirely reliant upon their parents. So the ways I can mimic blindness and deafness would be to turn down in-game sounds, of course, but also you could try turning down your gamma, or again trying to simulate nearsightedness by zooming in. And so as your dinosaur ages and becomes more reliant upon itself and its ability to see, you can use your sniffing button to interact with everything around you, to identify parents or herd mates or pack members, anything that is edible, anything that is not, and you can use this to kind of get by for yourself. So that's just one way to kind of start off. And then as you age, you can set your settings a little bit higher every time to kind of mimic everything slowly coming into focus. Keep in mind that whenever your dinosaur is first born, everything is new. So everything it's seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing for the first time are all completely novel. It does not know what is safe, it does not know what is dangerous. It may have some slight inklings, but for the most part, it's not going to know at all. So bear that in mind with your acting, as you will not always, again, you want to live your dinosaur, so bear in mind just acting out those new experiences. Maybe something that's perfectly benign is really scary, and vice versa. Those waves I've been hearing my entire life, that's probably fine, but a sudden stomp? Oh no, maybe that's really scary. And I just need my mom to come over and tell me that's okay. Or maybe it was something very scary. And then in which case, oh no, gotta learn how to run. Oh wait, I can't see that well, bonk. Oh no, I can't see that well still. Oh, it's scratching me, bonk. So that's just another way to also act out a juvenile in that same sense. Again, this would probably be a bit more common in predator animals that have a bit less need to be ready to go out of the egg. So you can probably act that out a bit better, especially in pack animals like Megaraptor or Velo, that are starting off their journeys blind and deaf, especially in most profiles that we have currently. Again, too, this can all be subject to change. So we could have animals that are very common to be just out and about on their own right out of the egg like Para, and then a profile could change and they could become more reliant upon their parents and be more blind and deaf. So just play out profiles that have this to the best of your abilities as they come about. You can apply this to any animal. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the dinosaurs that are getting older, so their senses are starting to fail them. Animals that were reliant upon their senses throughout their entire life, and then those are slowly starting to fade away, could have harder times adjusting than animals that were born with an ability to see or hear. Animals that were born with the ability to see or hear either learned to live with it or they died early. Older animals may have a bit more of a hard time, like I said, adjusting, so maybe, oof, I bumbled into that tree. How dare that tree bumble into me? That sort of a thing. So you can kind of just play it as a typical like crotchety old man may. So anything that you don't see, or even like a herdmate startles you, like, oh, you came up behind me too quick, don't do that. And then they'd either learn or say sorry or get mad back at you. But as you get older and frailer, you can kind of take that either with grace and accept, well, there goes my vision, it's probably going to be my time to get hunted soon. Or you could play it kind of crotchety and again, just wander along, bump, hey, how dare this thing run into me. So there's a few different ways really you can take it, and I think both ways will add a lot of flavor to your dinosaur. Something that's kind of taken its independence upon itself most of its life would probably have a harder time adjusting than an animal in a large herd, where they can rely upon their herd mates, use their sniff to follow them, or even get help from friends, family, sons and daughters to bring them food. Animals that are more solitary are just going to have to try and figure it out and adjust, and if they can't adjust, then that's natural selection. Older animals are just weaker, they're more likely to die, and this is one of the ways it can help simulate that in a natural way. So again, you can kind of simulate lack of senses by either zooming in to kind of simulate an ability to see super far, or you can set your gamma to a different level to simulate true blindness. If you want to go all the way, it's 0. But you're not completely helpless because you can still sniff to see your surroundings. It is entirely up to what you find enjoyable and what makes sense for your dinosaur story there. Additionally, dinosaurs aren't always born perfectly healthy. They could be born blind, they could be born deaf. The other thing too is that blindness isn't the only condition, so as I've been saying throughout this video, you can simulate nearsightedness by zooming in, or maybe you're only looking down to kind of simulate imperfection with your vision. So, in general, you could also try and recognize certain landmarks or certain dinosaurs that are able to guide you. There is a specific condition called astigmatism, which means that a certain part of your vision is completely obstructed. I can't really showcase this on game recording because of the nature of it, but a way to kind of simulate something like that would be putting like a post-it note on your monitor. That way you can't see that one specific area. Most of the times, this isn't going to affect you. That one time that something is trying to sneak up on you in that specific area, it may. And this is also why you can look around more, kind of try and accommodate for that missing part of your vision. Herbivores, again, will naturally have this usually in the front of their face, where their peripheral vision doesn't fully overlap since they don't have that overlap to create that depth of field. So you could even simulate this if you wanted to go super hardcore by putting a strip directly down the entire center of your screen and looking back and forth that way. So there's just a lot of different ways that you can take it, and there's a lot of different vision and hearing conditions that you can try and act out. You can roleplay this however you would like, or find ways to actually impose those restrictions upon yourself so you don't, quote-unquote, have a choice in the matter to cheat. It's really up to you and your playstyle and what you feel is best for you. Of course, please take all of these statements with a grain of salt, as you would be responsible for making sure you're able to see and hear conditions that are going to affect gameplay and which may affect rules. So if you don't see something because your dinosaur has a condition, that is going to be up to your responsibility to make sure that you are trying to take into account as well. This is also why I recommend these challenges mostly on herbivores, where you don't have to worry about that. You get your herd mate's ability to rely upon you, or vice versa. But sometimes carnivores will be born with these conditions, and while many of them will die young, some of them may live on. So again, it's up to your playstyle, what you feel comfortable with, and what works out for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments or ask in a Discord. And as always, these tips are going to be reliant upon your participation to continue. A lot of these tips came from our own actors in the community. Their names should be popping up on screen with credit where I start to talk about these things. Everything else is strictly from myself. So if you'd like to see yourself credited here, or if you'd like to showcase how you act, please don't hesitate to reach back out to me, because I will take those things into account. And I would be glad to showcase your tips and acting in future iterations. So, with all that being said, thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day and night. Stay safe out there.